Coming up on show 577, we're talking about mostly the reveal of the VW ID.3. Plus, though, we're talking a new Formula One team and a cheap Renault EV. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. In fact, wherever you're listening around the world, welcome to EV News Daily. Wednesday, the 11th of September today. My name is Martyn Lee, going through every single EV story that I can find and then filtering down only the stories that I think are the most important to save you time. Thank you as always to myev.com. The team at myev are busy building the world's only, the first marketplace that connects buyers and sellers of electric vehicles so that you don't have to waste your time on those other websites that tend to sell lots of other piston cars. It's a real waste of time, but if you're going to myev.com, you know the cars you're going to find on there are the ones you want to buy. And if you're in the USA, make the most of it. Thank you for the messages over the last 36 hours, really, because I'm not recording this when I should do. I've left it another day and was definitely under the weather for the last day. It is just a cold, but I feel terrible. I drove from London home yesterday as a 2-hour drive. I even had to stop and just check myself and be like, you shouldn't be driving. My eyes were streaming and they were sore and stuff. So I just pulled in, had a little rest, and was safe and got back on the road when I was feeling better. Let's kick off with the news, and that was the VW ID.3 being launched at the Frankfurt Motor Show. Is it the most important car being shown at the Frankfurt Motor Show? Well, it has a pretty good case to make. It's the first car built on VW's MEB platform, upon which all VW Group cars will be built, and we saw another one of those at the show, actually, the Seat Elborn, Seat being the cheaper, more Spanish bit of the VW Group. And you know what, I do prefer that in terms of styling. Effectively the same car from the A-pillar backwards, mostly. But the front just looks like way nicer. Anyway, why the ID.3? Well, the corporate speak on this is that it's the third important car the company has made. The Beetle being the first, the Golf being the second, and the ID.3 being the third, hence ID.3. It's a reminder how seriously the company is taking it. I know at the moment it's still all vaporware. I know that. I know you can't go down to the shop and buy one. But for the people who really do hate VW, and yes, they've done some things bad in the past, I try and remind people, even if you're not going to spend your own money on a VW ever again, just remember they are serious about this. The ID.3 was finally unveiled without its crazy camouflage paint job, which I kind of got used to, by the way. The front end, very rounded, very soft, and a interesting front end to the car. Matrix LED headlights, but not an aggressive car at all. Very soft, very contemporary looking. In terms of the size of the car, it's 4.26 metres long and 2.76 metres on the wheelbase. Now, that means the length of it is the same as the equivalent Golf. And you know, for a long time I've been saying, don't call this a Golf, it's nothing like it. But it's the same length as the Golf. But during the presentation, they said it has Passat space. And let me tell you what they mean by that. It's got 144 millimetres increased length between the axles than the Golf. They've really pushed the wheels to the extremities. It's even 60 millimetres higher, and yet the car is the same length as the Golf, but there's so much more passenger room. Well, as for the wheels, you can get 18s, 90s and 20-inch wheels. As with all show cars, they tend to put the biggest ones on, but if I was buying it, I'd go for the smallest. I'd go for the 18-inch because more comfort, and actually it's an EV, so more range. Standard aero wheels that we're seeing on EVs these days. Tesla started it, and lots of others continue that. Again, it can give you another few percent of range, but that's all welcome. No fancy door handles, which present themselves. Very conventional car. I think that's a signal that they've gone for a car that doesn't scare people, but also isn't overly engineered, but also things like the wing mirrors, the side mirrors aren't cameras, they're just regular glass. The door handles, very conventional that you would get on a Golf, for instance. This is going to be a very familiar car to the kind of people that haven't yet bought a Tesla for maybe that reason, but they go to their VW, they've owned 3, 4, 5 of them in their lifetime, they're going to go buy another Golf or a Passat and they try this, it's going to be a very familiar experience. I think this expands the EV marketplace rather than cannibalising what's already on sale. So yeah, very short overhangs, wheels on four corners really, if you like. The platform from the ground up has been designed to make the most of the space, but it also means you can have a very stubby short bonnet. Think Model 3, think Jaguar I-Pace. The A-pillar, so the very first pillar where the roof starts, dragged very, very far forward in a long sweeping screen, almost like a Model X screen that just keeps on going and going and going. That skateboard battery design, like I say, this isn't a platform that they're going to, on the same production line, put the odd hybrid in or the odd piston car. This is only ever going to be a battery car, therefore skateboard design, and by that I mean a big flat battery, so rather than packing them in under the rear seats and the front seats and wherever you can find a gap on a car that you're trying to turn from a fossil car to an EV, this is like Tesla's, just a battery beneath you, very low centre of gravity, rear wheel drive, and that's done for weight distribution and balance. Now there's two different motors that you can get on the ID.3. The lower one is 148 brake horsepower, and the bigger one is 201 brake horsepower. Neither of those, in their own right, are going to give it a sporty tag, but we know that EVs are sporty, and I wouldn't be surprised at some point in the future to see an ID.3R or a dual motor, four-wheel drive kind of thing. Top speed has been limited to 100 miles an hour or 160 kilometres an hour. It makes me think of a comment I made on a recent podcast. Why do you want to go faster? Unless you are doing Autobahn runs. And that's interesting because last Saturday, when I was talking to Ryan Morn from Avid Technology, he was saying that some of the German manufacturers are still, and he deals with car manufacturers all over the world, and he said that some of the people he talks to who are in Germany still talk about we need to make sure our cars can go on the Autobahn, which are unlimited speed restrictions. But with the VW ID.3, no setting of speed record, 100 miles an hour, 160 k's top speed, 0 to 62, which is 100 k's, in 7 seconds. So like I say, it's not a sporty car, but 7 seconds is hot hatch territory, it's sprightly, I think you would say. So what is the distance this car will go? Well, what's weird is that in some places I've seen them giving ranges, which is new to me. Porsche were doing that with the range of the Taycan, and they were saying, well, it'll do between this and this. And I didn't like that. Well, where's this come from? It just, an EPA range has to just be the range. But with WLTP, they started giving right, and I didn't like that. For the smaller battery, 205 miles. For the mid-size battery, 261 miles. For the larger battery, 342 miles. WLTP, which is the European test cycle, it's optimistic. I think you need to take off, I don't know, I think if you take off 8 to 10%, maybe 8%, then you are getting into EPA range territory. And EPA is my favourite, by the way, the most realistic. So if real-world range was 180 to 185 miles, then I think that's probably pretty realistic. Of course, we won't get an EPA range on the ID.3 because it's not being sold in the USA. And that, I know, is very frustrating for some people who would like another EV to be on sale in that market. How much do VW have confidence in their car? Well, they will warranty it for 100,000 miles on the battery. In terms of styling, a contrasting roof in terms of a different colour, so two tones, a black roof, whatever colour the car is, and in fact that black colour goes all the way down the boot, all the way down to the bumper. Some people say it's too similar to a Nissan Leaf. The large glass panoramic roof looks impressive, although it can't be opened. CCS DC fast charging. It's on the rear quarter panel, above one of the rear wheels, kind of where you would put the petrol in, actually, on most cars. Is that the best place for it? I know some people like the charging to be behind the badge on the front of EVs, so they can drive into an EV charger. If it's on the back and then to the side, with some charging cable design, it can be awkward. Let's wait and see. DC fast charging, 100 kilowatts. They're going to increase that to 125 in time with an over-the-air software update. And oh yes, over-the-air software updates are standard. So up to 125 kilowatts DC fast charging in time and 11 kilowatts AC charging on board, which is probably about right. 22 would be blowing your socks off, but for most people, I think that's a good cost-benefit balance. The 3 battery sizes they've given, 45 kilowatt hours for the smallest one, which is a small battery pack by modern EV standards. 45 kilowatt hours is perfect for driving around town. Why carry around more battery if you don't need it? But 45 kilowatt hours isn't the biggest. 58 kilowatt hours is the middle one, and actually the first one. Let me explain, because the first 30,000 people that have put money down to buy one of these have ordered the ID.3 first edition, and that is going to be the middle battery size. I wouldn't go for that. I would, if there is one on offer, go for the big battery size. That won't be coming initially, though. For the first orders, that one is 77 kilowatt hours, which on a small, lightweight, purpose-designed EV, well, it does get you good miles. Like I say, 342 miles on the WLTP test cycle for the biggest one. Battery cells, about as good as they get. They're coming from LG Chem. There is extra regen on this, one-pedal driving mode, if you like. No frunk. When you lift the bonnet, and we finally can have a look under there now that the car has been released, it's just the usual gubbins, the HVAC system, the 12-volt car battery, and a few different ancillaries, but no storage in the front. Interior, 2 screens. A small driver display behind the steering wheel, and it's attached to the steering column. So on the steering column, you've got the steering wheel, you've got behind it the small display, the driver's display, and to the right of it is the drive selector. So park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then you click it again for the one-pedal driving sort of B mode, extra regen mode. That all moves together. So when you move the steering wheel up and down or in and out to get your most comfortable position, the whole thing, the screen moves with the wheels. That whole thing is one big package. So the screen and the wheel are always in alignment, if you like. That's always one thing. You move the steering wheel to where you want to get in other cars, and then it cuts off a bit of the display. So that won't happen with this. It's got an electric driver's seat that I could tell, but I couldn't see any electric controls for the passenger seat. I'm still researching that. All animal-free products on the interior on some of the specs, but when you start to spec it up a little bit, then things like the leather steering wheel come in. But if you want a completely animal-free interior, animal cruelty-free interior, you can get that. The gear select, like I say, is on the column next to the steering wheel, and there's a head-up display behind the steering wheel on some trims. So again, not on the most basic. Talking of trims, they do show off a bright orange dual-colour interior. And on the launch car, that wasn't universally loved. This was the live stream they did, and I must admit, I wouldn't pick that. Way too funky. It would just, too garish, would grate on me, but there are more conventional, subdued colours. Always a dual colour trim, and the seats are two-tone as well, but I would definitely go for that. But the interior is playful in that orange colour, and a sign of that, the brake pedal has a pause icon on, and the accelerator pedal has a play icon on. Big centre screen is 10-inch, large centre screen, it angles to the driver, and it's on a stalk as well, so it's away from the dashboard. They have to do that because the dash in the ID.3 is pushed so far. I mean, generally the whole dashboard is pushed so far away from the front occupants. I mean, you'd never be able to touch the touchscreen if it was mounted actually on or within the dashboard. So it's on a stalk. It's a bit like an iPad that's sticking out. In fact, it's a bit like an iPad that's been turned around into landscape mode, because there is a kind of a home button on the left-hand side that always take you back to the home of the touchscreen system that looks very quick, very zippy, very intuitive as well. Now, I wonder if all those people who whined and moaned about the Model 3 interior are doing the same today, because the inside of the ID.3 is not that much different. There's a couple of buttons, think for the windows to go up and down on the driver's door. Otherwise, there are some, I think, touch-sensitive buttons, if you know what I mean. Like the ones that give you haptic feedback, temperature, volume, turn your hazard lights on. Otherwise, it's just a big screen. Nice armrests, by the way, on the front seats. I think that signifies something. It tells you something about this car. Why would you put armrests on the car? It's a relaxed driving. I think they think that EV driving is going to be more chilled out. Otherwise, this is a silent car. Go somewhere in silence and It looks like a comfy place to be up front. Also up the front, there's a cover. If you lift it up, there's 2 USB-C chargers. Wow, that's interesting. Skateboard design means no tunnel for the drivetrain. 2 more USB chargers in the back. In the boot, a fake bottom of the boot for cable storage. You open the boot by flicking the VW badge. The round badge, you just push the top of it like you do on all their piston cars as well. So lots of this has been carried over. It'll feel very familiar if you've owned a Golf. Prices start at under €30,000, which should mean that UK prices, they start with the free government grant at less than £25,000. It's enormously difficult to try and give these prices around the world. Obviously no point in dollars because they're not selling it in the USA, but we have 20% VAT on all consumer goods, and other places have less tax, and so it's very hard to start trying to give you all the possible numbers, but that is for the basic version. If you were to go the top spec, 77 kilowatt hours, and have it fully loaded, I'm sure that it then puts it into a very premium bracket and a big decision to make. The first edition is the middle battery size, 55 kilowatt hours, by the way. So if you are one of the 30,000 people who decided to put their £1,000 or their €1,000 down for it, are you looking forward to it or not? What's your opinion of this? Let me know your thoughts. Anytime, my email address is hello@evnewsdaily.com, and I'd love to hear from you on any of the stories on the podcast, comments on Facebook and YouTube too. What do VW say? I got a couple of official quotes here. The optional augmented reality head-up display. Let me explain that. It sends useful information onto the windscreen and your field of vision. For instance, it shows you where to turn or even which lane you should be in if you're leaving the motorway. There's a projection on the windscreen and what is then happening on the tarmac beyond. They try and blend it into one. That's super clever stuff. 3 battery sizes, 45, 58, 77 kilowatt hours. The medium-sized battery, the one in the middle, the first edition, can recharge up to a range of 260 miles in 30 minutes, they say, with 100 kilowatts charging. If you read the small print, it says net battery size. That is usable, by the way. So the batteries are obviously bigger. They have left a little bit at the top, a little bit at the bottom maybe, that you can't get access to. Unlike Tesla, that give you access to all the battery and then tell you not to charge it all the way up if you want best battery health. But since then, pretty much every EV that's launched does keep a little bit in reserve for battery health. Fumbling with the buttons while you drive is a thing of the past, says VW. Keep your eyes on the road, they say, and control the radio, the sat-nav and your phone with intuitive voice control. Just say, "Hello, ID," and the system will understand you. I hate all these systems. Have I got it turned on my phone? Hey, Siri. Yes, no, nothing, go away. Yes, I do have it on that. You know what? We have Alexa at home, and I talk to that a fair bit. But apart from that, all of these voice systems are just rubbish, aren't they? Do you use them? Do they work for you? Is it just me? This is the final quote that I found from VW, which did make me smile. The stylish, optional matrix LED headlights light up briefly, as if they were winking at you, making the ID.3 seem almost human. The ID light, that's what they've called it, not just the cabin light, but they've called it the ID light, makes you feel welcome immediately. When you start, the vehicle makes a little sound to get you in the mood. When you leave your ID.3, the ID light says goodbye with a light signal. That's in the words of VW, a corporate copywriter. Sounds like they'd been down the pub at lunchtime and then came back and did that. No, I know, I'm sure that they worked very hard. There were many, many board meetings to sign off that phrase. Holy moly. Personal opinion then, if you may allow me. Personal opinion, this raises the tide of EVs. They should, in theory, make a bucket load of these. Will any hardcore Tesla fans understand it? No, they didn't understand the Porsche Taycan last week, and they won't get this either. And I'm not particularly interested in having arguments online for people who don't understand this car yet. They will in the future. There is a breed of car buyer who don't want a Tesla, don't want an EV. They don't think that EV is for them, but they'll see this in their local VW showroom and they'll buy it, and then they'll tell their friends. Will this rob Tesla's sales? No. Will it? It's a different segment slightly. A bit cheaper than Model 3. Will it rob Leaf sales? Maybe. Yeah, actually, the cheaper one, maybe. Zoe ZE50? Maybe. It might do. Interesting. They're all at slightly different price points. And then you've got the others that are coming, the Peugeot E208. You've got the Vauxhall Corsa E, or the E-Corsa, whatever it's called. And so it's a range of prices, which is what we always wanted, right? We always wanted EVs at every bit of the spectrum, not just having these big luxury cars or a smart car at the bottom end. So I think it's great. Well done, VW. There are obviously comparisons now to every other EV because that's inevitable. They've done a great job. They have taken their time doing it. They are, being one of the world's biggest vehicle manufacturers, clearly not as agile as a company like Tesla, clearly have to go through more processes. They don't have someone like Elon Musk who can just say something on Twitter and then the engineers wake up the next day and get told, oh, by the way, yeah, Elon promised this, so work out how to do it. That doesn't happen in a company like VW. Supply chains are different and the numbers all have lots more zeros on the end of them. And so I don't envy the task they've got. I think they've made a solid start. Let's see where they go from here. I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt at the moment, notwithstanding previous behaviour, which is indefensible. Right, how are we doing for time? Okay, I've got time for 3 more stories, if my voice holds out. Mercedes has just launched their Formula E squad. The ABB FIA Formula E car has been launched. They've also unveiled their drivers. Stoffel Vandoorne, former McLaren Formula 1 driver, and Nick de Vries are going to be their drivers. And the livery of their Silver Arrow 01 has been announced by Autosport magazine. Reading this with my Autosport Plus subscription, because if you love motorsport like I do and you like all sorts of sport, then of course I imagine you too might be thinking about signing up to Autosport if you haven't already, and check out their Plus area, and you get just loads more access to stories like this. Now, the new Mercedes squad will make its debut in the upcoming 2019-2020 Formula E campaign. It'll take over the entry that was previously HWA's, and that competed as a Venturi customer last season. Mercedes' first Formula E powertrain has been developed by the same HPP operation that's High Performance Powertrains, I believe. A HPP operation that also builds the V6 hybrid Formula 1 engines that have powered 5 consecutive double world titles. I'll put a link to Autosport in the show notes if you want to read the story. And let's move on to an electric version of a low-cost Renault. Edward Niedermeyer has written a very long read for The Drive. It's an excellent article as well. He says that after the drives, Alex, Roy and I drove across India in a Renault Kwid that cost $4,000 new. We concluded the impressive little car was at least as disruptive as anything Tesla's ever done. Then we heard whispers that Renault's best cost engineers were turning their attention to an electric version of the Kwid. And now it's been announced. It's clear that the breakthrough we were hoping for is real, says Edward at The Drive. The Renault City KZE has been announced, only for the Chinese market. It offers a combination of great range for low money. It's just under 62,000 yuan. That's $8,700 US. 30 kilowatt hour battery made by Tianjin Lishen, and they say 155 miles, but it won't. They will it. 30 kilowatt hour battery is going to do 100 miles, maybe, in that car. But for an EV, less than $9,000 equivalent, with a 30 kilowatt hour battery, that is great. Less than $8,700 equivalent. Wow, if there was an EV like that where you live, would you buy one just for popping around town, doing your errands and chores, maybe a first car for the kids when they pass their driving test? Tempting. Let's talk about some news from Porsche. Finally, Porsche has been speaking about the Taycan and the Model S comparisons, which came out last week. You know they annoyed me enormously. Porsche of North America president and the CEO, Klaus Zellmer, told Yahoo Finance in Frankfurt he has no problems with people comparing the two electric brands, but for him, the real test is how the car fits into Porsche's lineup, the lineage, as well as people's expectations for the Porsche brand and what Porsche do as their first EV in the eyes of Porsche buyers. And holy moly, this is exactly what I said last week. It doesn't take me, or even the CEO of Porsche, to try and explain to people who don't understand the Taycan. It's not aimed at anyone, really, apart from those with $150,000 to $250,000 who would have spent it on a piston supercar. A lot of people don't understand that and realise it. And now the CEO of Porsche himself says, look, he understands the comparisons, but it was really made to fit into the Porsche lineup at a certain price point. And may I remind you, Panamera Turbo S, yes, similar size, similar style. This is for people who are always going to buy a Porsche or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Are there better cars out there for half the price than a Porsche piston car? Yes, there are. I should stop now. I've got a quote from him, actually, from Klaus Zellner. He said this, and I quote, currently 50% of the people who have put down a deposit to get a Taycan already drive another Porsche somewhere in the fleet of cars they own. And the other 50% are people that don't currently drive a Porsche, but do have another car as their main driver. The biggest group within that second 50%, if you like, are signing up to the list as Tesla owners. So that's interesting. Maybe that's people who have a Tesla or two already and will add the Taycan to their garage. Imagine that, someone owning more than one car. Mind-blowing. Let's get on to our question of the week because my voice really is going now. The MyV question of the week this week, set by Jill Noel. Not that she realised it, but I found her question online and blatantly stole it. She asked this, pondering on people's switch to EVs, did you have a light bulb moment in your journey on finding out about electric cars, whether it was last week or last, decade? Did you have a light bulb moment? And if so, what was it? Email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. You can leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube. Well, thank you very much to 251 patrons of the podcast. You are very kind, you're very supportive. I appreciate your support, your financial, your moral support, and even, yes, when people email me to go, geez, you don't sound well, have a day off. And it's like, yeah, I know, I could do, but I like this. This is too much fun not to do. And so thank you for bearing with me. I'm sure my cold will clear up over the next couple of days. If you want to check out Patreon, it's a website where you can support creators, patreon.com/EV News Daily. Thank you very much to Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, and the gang at Avid Technology, all premium partners of this podcast, and they make it happen and bring you the news. There are 576 previous shows online. Get them completely free in the archive. Get the new shows first and free if you hit subscribe in your podcast app. If you want to say hi on the socials, you can by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'm off to take some flu tablets. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.